Hello, everybody. This is just going to be a very quick addendum to our E3 coverage because there were a few things we missed, some things that aired after we finished our Nintendo coverage of Day 4, and just for the sake of completion, just completion's sake, and because we covered everything else in many, many podcasts, like 6 hours worth of podcasts, it would have felt weird if we just didn't cover everything. So I'm just making this quick update to show, what was shown in between things that we missed, or, how did they close out the show? And then we're going to have our roundtable discussion later where we really dig into what our likes were, our dislikes, biggest disappointments and most anticipated, that sort of stuff. We'll do that later as a roundtable discussion. So, earlier in the week, we missed the limited run games presentation, and there was 30 games that they showed off coming. I'm not going to talk about each of them, but there were some surprises in there, like the Kunio-kun collection, which is that was available previously, digital only, and obviously limited run does physical, but I didn't think that was ever going to come to a physical version because it's just such a big compilation of the Kunio-kun games and Double Dragon, all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of neat. There was Super Hot is coming to a physical version on Switch. I saw they tried to make it kind of funny by putting in little skits in between, and I mean it was charming because it was so low budget. It's bad when a big corporation tries to do the tongue-in-cheek funny thing, but it can be great when it's just clearly a small group of people trying to do their best. So I'll give them a pass on that. It was much more entertaining than anything that they tried to do over at Gearbox. So they closed out with what was the big thing they showed off there? Oh yeah, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is getting the big anniversary collection with all the video. I guess they must have found. I'm surprised all these random companies have the master tapes. We saw it for Night Trap and all, where it wasn't just HD because they upscaled it. They found the original master tapes and completely made a new print, which always blew my mind. And this looks to be getting the same treatment. They actually had what appears to be the actress that was the focal point of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and had her come out, and I don't think anybody recognized her, do the introduction for the game, and then it cuts into the game, and you're like, oh my god. That was the FMV game, if you want to call it a game, where the goal was to get with a girl, and it was just the most cringeworthy of pretty much all of the adventure point-and-click game. It's not really, I'm saying game in quotes, but it's one of those notorious Night Trap style games, and I think it's going to sell out pretty fast. If it's not one that you can just pre-order to infinitum, it's going to be something that is really limited and will be a big hit amongst a lot of the streamers. The other highlight of their show was probably showing off that they are getting a physical release of Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood, the Castlevania games that I think they had a recent remaster edition release on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and they're getting a release together on a cart. But also, Rondo of Blood is getting an English translated version, with a full English localization on the original TurboGrafx platform, but specifically the Turbo CD. I think that might be Limited Run's first Turbo CD version. And this is the case where you're going to have 99% of people that buy it either emulate it through a computer emulator or attempt to, or just put it on their shelf to collect, because the Turbo CD, I think it only sold 10,000 units worldwide. Right? It's not a popular console. I actually had 2 or 3 copies of Cosmic Fantasy 2 on it because I got it in an eBay lot for $10 a piece. Ended up selling for $150. This was 10 years ago, because it not only was it a rare game somebody just found in the back of their store's warehouse, but they were all sealed. I opened one to play a bit of on the PC using an emulator. But it was actually, I think it was the first Working Designs RPG. And if you remember Working Designs, they were the localization house that did all the Lunar games on the Sega CD, as well as the PlayStation. And they were, notorious for having really high quality releases, but sometimes injecting their own humor into the localization that divided some fans. They were what brought up the debate of do you do a straight translation or do you do a localization? And they were always of the localization fan. They recently, they went out of business and then came back as Gaijin Works, and I think their most recent release was like a Summon Night game on PS4, but they were considered like the big translation house, like before Square Enix and when it was still Squaresoft and Enix, and you had some other companies like Konami making JRPGs, and then they would localize them, and they'd always have like poor scripts, because let's be honest, Final Fantasy had poor scripts until like 13. The localization was always a little rough, especially when it was like a one-man job back. Like they'd have like one person do the localization back in the 90s, where in the 90s the localizations from Working Designs was that they were the premier localization house for RPGs, like period. From like people think it was like 1990, 2 or 3, but it was a little earlier than that. Like from like 1990 until 2001, like they basically owned the decade of putting up the high quality releases, and their stuff is always in high demand. Well, those games, like people didn't realize, Cosmic Fantasy 2 was turn-based RPG with like full voice acting, really bad voice acting because it's like early 1990 voice acting. But they did it all in-house, and it had all the hallmarks of their quality releases and everything. So that was a big deal. Like I sold that, and I'm pretty sure the people I sold it to had no way of playing it. So, this is interesting that they've gone and taken it, because I think it only got a recent translation when... Actually, I don't know if that original version ever had a translation of Rondo of Blood. But either way, they're going to be releasing a physical release on Turbo CD of that game, and that was like blew my mind. That's going to be probably pretty popular. As far as what else was shown, there was a little, after the Nintendo showcase, they had the Namco showcase, which was just one game, and it was part of that was a Dark Pictures anthology, which, to be honest, we didn't cover because those games are coming to Game Pass, and I mean, it's a single game. Come on, like, why say that you're having a press showcase when you have a 10-minute presentation or 12-minute presentation for a single game, and you're a studio as big as Namco, like you're one of the biggest studios in Japan, and you had your trailer for Tales show up at I think Jeff Keighley's presentation. Why couldn't you have a deep dive? If you're going to have a deep dive, why wouldn't you go like, hey, we're going to show off 3 games. Each game is going to have a 10-minute deep dive, and then we'll have maybe a tease. No tease, no deep dive for anything else except that. And they had like a little thing here and there, like a trickling of trailers on other people's shows, but it wasn't anything big. None of their licensed titles showed up anywhere. Like I don't count like Kakarot, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot coming to Switch as a new game. Like nobody cares. Let's be honest. Everybody who's played that game, wants to play that game, has played that game. So nobody cares. So I was really surprised. There was also absolutely nothing from Scarlet Nexus. That comes out in like 2 weeks. Let me see here. When does that come out? Yeah, it's like, I think it's either the 25th or the 29th. And there was nothing at E3 for it, which doesn't instill confidence, because the rumor originally was that game was going to go as Game Pass, and then they openly said that wasn't. And I have seen zero buzz for it. I tried the demo, thought it was good, but I thought that some of the controls were a little convoluted and needed to be toned down a bit, if that makes any sense. There's too many button presses, there's too much contextual things. There's a lot of quick time events that you do when fighting that's just it's a little much. But it's their first PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X title, and it was absolutely nowhere to be found. Even on the press site for for the E3 press portal, they had like a little article on it and nothing. There was no big promotion for it at all. The promotion was for Tales. So it's like, I worry, does that mean they don't care about the game at all? Or have they, like, you would think that with 2 weeks away from release, they want to push it. So I don't know. That's maybe me reading into it a little bit much, but I was a bit surprised at that. The other thing that showed after the fact, after the Nintendo showcase, was there's a Yooreka studio, and it's a Chinese publisher that I thought, the way they made it sound, it might have been a problem with translation. They made it sound like it's a publisher that takes Western games and publishes them in China. So I just avoided it initially because I was like, hey, this doesn't seem like it's anything we would care about, because it's just publishing in a country games that we already have. It's actually the other way around. They publish games in China that are made in China for the Chinese market, and they're now expanding to try to release games over here. I'm going to pull up a list because some of the games looked really indie, and it was not necessarily polished enough that I would say, hey, they're going to do well here. But there were a couple that were out of like the 10 or so that they showed. Actually, I would say there's one. There's one game that they showed that is probably worth keeping your eye on, because I think if they don't release it here themselves, it's probably going to get picked up by a publisher, maybe even a medium or larger publisher, and that is Loopmancer. Loopmancer. Enunciate there, Alex. So the game appears to be a little bit, maybe I was going to say roguelite, but it's not. It seems, though, that it's a loop game. You beat a level, and then you wake up, and you're slowly trying to uncover what's happening to you in your dreams or something to that extent. But it's a 2.5D action brawler with really like weighty feeling combat with a sword and shotguns. Everything feels like it packs a punch, and it's got a lot of style, and it looks like something that Namco would put out, but Namco or like Sega in that kind of quality. And they've, even though it's not being released here yet, they were smart and they actually paid for it, even if it's cheaper, an English dub to be done for the voices of all the characters. Which I'm like, oh, they did that. All the other ones didn't have that. This seemed to be their premier title. And there is a little bit of like Bionic Commando action where there's like grappling hook stuff going on. There's a little bit of Ninja Gaiden feel mixed with a little bit of like Strider and boss fights. If you saw the way that the look of the Metroid in the game, Metroid Dread looks, and the way that the gameplay is, it looks like a little bit of that. But with a lot of close-ups on, like, you'll run around the level platforming, finding your way around and beating up people, and then it looks like when it goes to the boss fights, it cuts into a more closer zoomed-in camera where you can fight them, and it looks more like the angles you'd see from a fighting game. Pretty cool stuff. I'm glad I saw it, because I don't know if it was going to, ever come back onto our radar regularly, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye on for sure. And then after that, as far as anything else, there's probably a few trailers here and there that we missed earlier in the week that, with the deluge of everything, didn't make it to us. Oh, their Arcade1Up showed off. I believe they showed 2 cabinets at a. I don't know when they released the trailers. They didn't have like their own event. I think they just popped them up at one point. One was for Big Blue, the Street Fighter II arcade cab, and then there was a trailer for the X-Men 4-player game. I don't know how that's going to play well because of how cramped they're going to be with that smaller scale, but that's cool. And I think I couldn't find the trailer for it, but I was pretty sure that they announced or either teased that they've got the license for the Simpsons game. But don't quote me on that. That I may be wrong, but that was interesting if that's the case. I do remember seeing that popping up around. Maybe it's a prototype cab they have or something, but that was neat. And the last thing to talk about, and we'll probably get into it more when we do our roundtable, was I watched the E3 Game Awards, which I thought that they were doing this as like a big fuck you to Jeff Keighley and his Game Awards, which is awarding games like actually released games. And then I realized, no, this is them doing what they would normally do at the. You start seeing like stickers that show up on games where it's like best of E3. Well, finding out now that how they vote for these is people in a select group watch the trailers and play a few demos a week or two before the event that are hand selected by the ESA. So not regular press, it's whomever press that they purposely choose or have found a way to be on their list, whether I don't know what the method to get that is. I'm not going to speculate. And they vote on the stuff, and I thought, okay, so are they going to do like an awards presentation? How are they doing this? And it was 3 of the hosts that E3 hired to do their pre-shows standing in front of a green screen and reading from a teleprompter who the winners were over the course of 12 minutes. And we had such exciting titles as, or award categories as most anticipated in television game, which went to, what was it, like, what the hell was it, Asteroids or something? It wasn't, it was something stupid where I was like, let me pull it up. Actually, I think I took a picture on my phone because, like, physically, like, pulled up my camera and went, I can't believe this. Let's see here. Yeah, most anticipated in television game, Asteroids. Is this 1981 or 2021? And I'm somebody who's actually pretty excited and intrigued by the Intellivision. We all know that Asteroids is not the most anticipated title. The most anticipated title is the next Earthworm Jim, which is the one title that is universally known that doesn't feel like it's aged like 40 years, even though it's like a 30-year-old franchise that people have been waiting for, that they announced is completely exclusive. And they showed a little, I think, like 6 months ago, like a walking loop or something. That's the most anticipated game. Not Asteroids, but I don't know how they voted on that, if it was just arbitrary. Then they had like best most anticipated game of the Ubisoft showcase. It was that sort of stuff. It wasn't even like what I figured would be like most technically impressive, most innovative looking, or like that sort of stuff, like you'd think from a real award show. It was kind of like not even fluffy. This was so last minute and so bullshit that like anybody that might have thought like, oh, maybe this is like a big FU to Jeff Keighley and his Game Awards. Jeff Keighley is probably laughing his ass off watching this because of how pathetic it was. This is like if Mike and I and Ken did our own little award show. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do that in a round table. And we'll be like, here's our award show. And it'll probably sound and look more professional than what they put on. I'm not going to get into too much more. I'll probably write down all the award winners and see, because there's no way they watched it, and see if they can guess what all these were, because this is so stupid. And like here, if somebody at the ESA ends up listening to the podcast and gets pissed and we don't get press credentials for next year, I don't know if we'd want them, because it was actually quite offensive how poorly planned out their entire website, their entire panel was. As soon as the award show showed and the live stream ended, I went and logged into the E3 press portal to gather my notes and maybe see if there was any last minute contacts I could have. They had already shut down all press access. They didn't even wait till like 24 hours later. Like, you couldn't even connect with any of the people that you contacted with. All the booths were gone. The email contacts already. So if you didn't already contact them or write everything down, you're screwed. That's how poor it was. Now, the only plus side that I've seen out of doing this was there was some... I should mention, there were a couple things that we didn't mention on the show that I saw press access for that weren't a part of actual E3 events, but they had a presence specifically for the press on the website. Otterbox was up there, probably one of the few booths that was ready to go a few days before E3. And what they had to show off were that they're getting more into the gaming realm other than just doing protective cases for phones. So they have a protective case for your phone that has a privacy shield, so that when you use it in one of those portable controller dock thingies, when you're out and about, people can't see it. It's pretty neat. It was easy to install, it looked like. They also had a carrying case for one of those game clip things that you put your phone into that you can then use with like a Xbox controller. It holds like the controller, the Xbox controller. It holds the protective case, and it has like spot for cables and cleaning cloths and all that. Hard shell case, similar to what the Elite controller box is like. So that was neat. And their big thing that they were showing off was they are entering the battery realm. They have 2 batteries with a dock that you can use for the Xbox One and Xbox Series controllers. And the big deal with them is it's a little bit bigger battery than normal. So it's like, okay, you can charge it on the dock, yada, yada. But when you attach their system to the back of the controller, it actually has an extra battery reservoir. So it has a battery reservoir that holds like a little bit of a charge. Nothing like, maybe not anything fantastic, something probably like, 10, 20 minute of charge, whatever it is. And what that allows for is for you to hot swap out the main batteries. So, hey, you see your battery goes down to like nothing. It'll go beep, beep. Your battery is now depleted. Replace the battery. Instead of turning your controller off or killing the power to your controller while you're in the middle of a game or logged in or whatever, which in modern consoles also logs you out usually or pauses a game, you can snap off the battery off the back, and while you're doing that to snap on the other one, there's a reserve battery that's already kicked in, so it's uninterrupted swapping of batteries, which is something, I think it's a patent they have. It's never been used before. Pretty neat and pretty weird that it's coming from OtterBox and not from somebody that's like a known peripheral company. Like this isn't like from even like Duracell or Mad Catz or PDP or even something that Microsoft would put out themselves. So that's kind of neat. There were a couple others on there like that. There were entire things that really had no place being there, like a lot of Chinese stuff that was even not for our market, like even though E3 is mostly a Western market thing. So weird. And there's still supposed to be stuff coming later today with an extended, was it the extended showcase from Xbox? I think that's just deep dive. It's their version of like Nintendo's Treehouse. So I'll tell you right now, we're not coming back for another episode to cover that unless there's some breaking amazing news that we haven't heard of. If they're like, and I'm going to probably eat my words with this. We'll probably do something or at least mention it on the main show or something if it turns out that they end up showing like Hellblade 2 or something. Because that was completely absent from the Xbox presentation, and people noticed that. But that is going to do it for our addendum of small items and things that we missed that we wanted to make sure we talked about for E3. I am so incredibly done talking about E3 for now. We will be back to talk on probably the weekend. I think Saturday or Sunday we're going to get together and do our little roundtable discussion. And then I will also be talking about it, but not hosting. So I'll be a third-party panelist talking on the Nerd to the Third podcast about it. We will be recording, I think, this Tuesday. I'm not sure what their release schedule is like. And then after that, I don't want to talk about E3 anymore for quite some time. I don't want to talk about it until we have to compare it to whatever Sony has or whatever happens in the middle of summer. And then as far as anything else on the website this week, you would have already seen our latest podcast from Aaron and Darlene on I forget what the whatever science fiction horror movie they were talking about from the 1950s, but that's Wednesdays. That will be continuing for the next few weeks, and then as we get into the summer, we'll be shifting that to Tuesdays and Thursdays, as we have plenty of episodes to release, especially during the time where we're going to start taking breaks from the main shows. We want to make sure there's plenty of fun, review discussion podcasts to talk about in between. We've also got on Friday a Toward Our Treasure review podcast in lieu of what we were going to have on Monday with the main show this past week, with a few reviews from myself on there. And then I believe Birdman's got a review set. I'm not sure what it is just yet, and I'll be working on a couple things for the main show this coming Monday. One of my reviews will be on a new speaker set for the computer that's also Bluetooth, and it's got a bunch of features that Creative Labs sent over to check out. I was going to originally put it on this week's show, but I didn't want to clutter it. We didn't actually make the show, but I also didn't want to clutter it with during E3 coverage. So it'll be something for, I guess, a gamer out there that wants entry to mid-level speakers to talk about. And then I'm not sure what my other review is going to be just yet. It's probably, if I get time to actually play and get through a lot of it, going to be the Garage Builder, whatever it's called, for the Nintendo that they sent me to check out. I also have, what else do I have to review coming up? Game Builder Garage, that'll be on this week's show. The speakers, depending, we've got, on this Friday show, we've got the Neptunia Reverse, we've got a bunch of Mill Creek Blu-rays that were reissues of previous studios out of print stuff, and we have the Persistence Enhanced for the PS5. We just received Alex Kidd in Miracle World, so that'll be next week sometime. Might be talking a bit about Industries of Titan that now that it's going on Steam on June 21st. We had a early access copy on Epic Games, the Epic Games Store last year, and a lot's been added since. We've got, what else? Oh, and the other thing I got this week was I got my first E3 title. That the press company, the dev actually reached out and said, hey, would you like to check this out? And it was something that we talked about on the show, so I have a feeling that somebody heard it. And they said, hey, would you like a copy of this? And I went, yes, I would. And it's Dark Deity. That was from the Freedom Games press event. That was all the indie titles that they had. And that was the one that looked like it's a tactical RPG or strategy RPG in the style of like Shining Force and Ogre Battle. So I was actually playing a little bit of it tonight. It's pretty good. I'll get a few more chapters in before I really lay into my review thoughts on it. For a game created by like 3 or 4 people as their first game while they're in college, it's pretty darn good. So I'll have to see how it balances out. But I'm thoroughly impressed so far with my early playthrough. And that is everything I've got going on the run right now personally. Upcoming though, we've got to look at what games are coming out in the next. Let's see here, game releases 2021, because I know I have a spreadsheet set up with what's coming out and what we've sort of requested and what we're hoping to cover. I do know with Namco Bandai, it's been very hit or miss if we get review copies of things. So sometimes we end up waiting till we can get it ourselves and review it. But we have put in requests for Scarlet Nexus. I did have a pre-order on that. I canceled the pre-order when I ended up using the money to get more Xbox Live Gold, because Gold was $59 down from $69 on Amazon. So I got that, stacked it with my current gold level. So I have 2 years of gold. And because of the E3 special they're running for $1 to come back, either to join or to come back to Game Pass Ultimate, I took advantage of that, because that $1, normally they convert like a few months into Ultimate. No, it's a 1-for-1 deal. So last month I paid $59 for Xbox Live Gold. This month I paid $59 for Xbox Live Gold. That's 2 years worth. And then I paid a single I was going to pay a single $1, but I believe they because I was returning, I had to pay a 1 month $16, whatever it is, right? Paid my $16, but that added an extra month. So I got 25 months because of the way they converted it now with the special. A lot of people don't know that. During the E3 specials, they'll convert whatever time you have on gold 1-to-1. So I got 25 months now of Game Pass Ultimate. And I did the math, it works out to roughly just a little under 1/3 of the price of if I had paid for it month to month, like normal. Or because you don't get a bundle deal when you pay for Ultimate. No matter if you get 12 months, it's still the same as paying it for 1 month at a time. You just pay up front. So I ended up with roughly $500 worth of Game Pass for about 150-ish or 130-ish, something like that. So it was it made me happy, but obviously I'm not getting Scarlet Nexus at launch if that's the case. But if we get a review copy, I'm going to go into it. As far as the other game I requested was Tales. Again, with Namco, it used to be we got pretty much absolutely everything. The last 2 years, it's been like, holy crap, they've been flipping a coin. It's like, nope, you're not getting it. Nope, you're not getting it. And then randomly we'll get something. So we'll see if it goes. Now, let's see here. What do we have on the dates right now? Okay. On our list. Legend of Mana, we're probably going to hold off. That might just be a play for ourselves. But we should be getting Samurai Warriors 5 from Koei. We should be getting that. I'm not sure. And if we get the codes, that'll be in a week or so. We'll be covering Mario Golf regardless on the 25th. We will also be covering and reviewing. That's it for games on this month. Out of all of them, there might be some indie stuff, or there might be some E3 stuff we get early access to that we'll talk about. But as far as what's upcoming in July, just as an overview, we are going to be covering Monster Hunter Stories 2. We're not getting a review copy because it's Capcom, and Capcom doesn't give out review copies. But that is one that we've paid for, so we'll be covering that. As far as anything else, we're probably going to do Skyward Sword. Not 100% sure if Nintendo's going to be sending us a copy, but I believe so. Chris Tales, we were going to review, but it's a Game Pass game, so we're probably not now. It's just because prioritizing things, right? As far as anything else in that month, there's not a whole ton. We're probably getting Blaster Master 03 because our friends over at Inti Creates a lot of times send over something at 2 a.m. because it's Japanese time. I'll wake up to go to the bathroom, and our contact there will be like, hey, Alex, look at this. We got a game for you. And I'll be like, wow, you sent it to me in the middle of the night. And that's it, because July is looking pretty lean when it comes to game releases. August, it's a little better. I mean, there's Godfall on PS4. And Psychonauts and Kenna Bridge of Spirits and No More Heroes 3, which is cool. There's a bunch of stuff. It's really September and October where we're going to see a huge pickup there, and we're going to be all panicking about making sure we can get as many games in as we can for review. But we've also got movies coming. We've got a few other electronics and things in the works, and there wasn't a big presence from third-party peripheral companies I noticed at E3 at all this year, so I'm reaching out to some of the people that we've received units from before to see, hey, do you have anything planned? What's going on? You got new hardware you want us to check out? And we'll see where we go from there. So that's sort of the update on what's going on at the website, and that's going to do it for today. I will be back tomorrow with our Turtle Treasure deep dive into some of the newest games and movies that we've received for review, and then we'll be back on the following Monday with the main show. I'll see if Birdman's got his reviews ready, and if not, then I guess I'm recording more stuff.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.